This wedding was an assignment for my Religion 2 class in Catholic school.
This One's Wife, the worst wedding. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Well, just over 6 years ago, This One's Wife and the Prince of Pink Pancake were joined in holy matrimony, although, of course, This One's Wife claimed that she was actually married 3 days earlier in a secret ceremony. Another lie and another revision of history, which had to lead the Archbishop of Canterbury to speak out and point out that she was wrong. Once again, she tells a porky pie, she gets exposed for it, a bit of a recurrent theme when it comes to This One's Wife. Way back then, I had pointed out about the Narcissist and clued you into all of the evidence, and since that time, she has again and again and again demonstrated what she is. We take a little trip down memory lane now, courtesy of the Super Soaraway Sun, where an article tells us Prince Harry and This One's Wife's big day was miserable. Why was it miserable? Was it because the Queen thought, Harry, you stupid boy, what are you doing, marrying this Harridan? Was it the case that Philip shook his head, thinking, you stupid boy? Charles thinking to himself, my idiot son? Was Big Willie Styley thinking, bro, what are you doing? Did various members of the congregation look on and recognise what was come to pass? Did they think, we feel miserable because although he looks enraptured now, he's going to regret this because she's a troublemaker? Well, certainly the signs were there, but whether many people in the royal family and the congregation recognised that, that's debatable. But was that the source of the misery? Or was it the case that This One's Wife hissed through Richter's grin, I have you now, at the altar, thus alarming the Prince of Pink Pancakes as he suddenly thought, oh shitola, oh, what have I done? And found out it was too late, as the rings had been slipped on the fingers, and they were joined together. Well, actually, this misery comes courtesy of a photographer. Yes, Arthur Edwards claimed the wedding was one of the worst royal events he has ever been to. He recalled the glitzy affair at St. George's Chapel in Windsor on May the 19th, 2018, and how he couldn't get out of Windsor quick enough. In an exclusive interview with the Sun's royal editor Matt Wilkinson, Mr. Edwards said, I was there. I hated the day. It was a miserable day. Well, what was the source of Mr. Edwards' misery? Did This One's Wife wander over, grip his pink pods and give them a squeeze and say, listen, you motherfucker, you better take good pictures of me, okay? Maybe it was because This One's Wife had laid on too much hairspray and that there was a fog of chemicals surrounding her that perhaps affected Mr. Edwards, making it difficult for him to breathe. Maybe Harry wandered over and issued some instructions as to how This One's Wife ought to be photographed, and that made him miserable. Well, Mr. Edwards explains, I can tell you now, it was the worst royal engagement I ever did. Gosh, what's the source of this poor man's misery? Did they not give him a slice of wedding cake? Did he slip in a turd and fall over, smashing his camera? It was the worst royal wedding I ever did because Harry was determined to keep the newspapers away from it as much as possible. The plot thins. Everything was done on long lenses. It was hopeless. And when they went past in the carriage, they turned away from me. I felt it was deliberate with the British press. In many ways, they were badly treated. Harry was angry at us about things said about This One's Wife. Some of the things were pretty harsh, some were pretty unfair. He was angry, and I felt we were punished for that. I've done some really lovely royal weddings. I did both of Charles's, William's, Andrew's, Sophie, and Edward's. But on this one, I couldn't get out of Windsor quick enough. Well, that's the misery of royal photographer Arthur Edwards, who felt that as a consequence of the way that this one's wife had been treated by certain sections of the press, Harry had a strop on. Now, this denotes, of course, the emotional empathy that Harry has for his wife, that he feels protective of her, that the fact that the press had started to question certain aspects of her behaviour, legitimately, of course, that did not fit well with Harry. At that stage, as he is now, he is beset by his emotional thinking. But back then he was in the golden period. It was probably still in place. It was round about the 18-month mark that it had been together, and it normally runs for sort of 6 to 18, 24 months. And therefore, with the consolidation of marriage, i.e., him marrying her meant that he demonstrated he was very much under control, the golden period would have continued. Thus, he was treated to all of the good stuff. He was complimented, flattered, supported, given still lots of spicy poontang. She lets you do anything. And therefore, he would have thought to himself, I've got this magnificent fiancée who's now my wonderful wife. I now need to protect her. The British press have been shits to me during my life, thus he has an inherent bias, but also, I don't like some of the things that have been written about my wife. Remember, Harry was and is completely blind to much of her shortcomings. He will have seen more of them doled out as against him. He's not that stupid. He will recognise when she's been unpleasant to him. But for the most part, he is unable to see that a lot of her behaviour vis-à-vis third parties is problematic, and he still swallows the line that she is the one that is the victim, that people are racist towards her, hateful towards her, and certainly back in 2018, he very much accepted that narrative from her. After all he'd seen was a woman who was behaving towards him in a way that made him feel very special. She'd only ever been decent and kind towards him. Although, of course, we saw the way that she behaved in the engagement interview, he will have failed to pick up on the way that she was seeking to control him at that juncture. He was just enraptured by her and felt happy. He'd finally found his Kate. However, even though as time has gone on and he's been devalued, he still has that mindset of disliking the press because, one, he always has done as a consequence of their treatment of him. Two, he blames the press, the paparazzi, the media for his mother's death. And three, the scrutiny of his wife, much of it legitimate, has led him to believe that there is a witch hunt against her also. And therefore, driven by his own emotional empathy, he's been moved to want to protect her, and thus made Arthur Edward's royal wedding a complete misery by insisting on the press being kept far away, that it being long lens only, and apparently turning away when going past the British press pack so that they couldn't get suitable photographs. That, of course, is unsurprising of the petulant nature of Prince Harry, which links into his strong narcissistic traits, but also, at the time, his emotional empathy for protecting his wife. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.